What if I told you that the most trusted lure in your winter tackle box, the one that's caught you hundreds of fish, is now actively scaring them away? Today, we're talking about a hard truth. We're going to explore why your legendary go-to ice fishing lure has probably stopped working, and you just haven't realized it yet. And by the end of this, you'll understand the real reason behind those frustratingly slow days on the ice. It's not the weather, it's not the spot. It's right there, tied to the end of your line. There's a specific phenomenon that happens under the ice that makes old popular lures completely obsolete, and we're going to break it down. So think about it. What's that one lure you'd swear by no matter what? Let me know in the comments before we even start. I bet some of you are thinking of the exact lure I'm about to call out. Every single one of us has that one lure. It's more than just a piece of metal or plastic. It's a confidence bait. It's the first thing we tie on when the bite gets tough and the last thing we'll ever question. This belief is rooted in history. Maybe your grandfather used it on this very lake 50 years ago. Maybe you had one epic day with it a decade back that's now burned into your memory. This tradition, this muscle memory, is powerful. It's why we stick to our old ways. It's far easier to blame a slow day on barometric pressure, a full moon, or just plain stubborn fish, than it is to admit our favorite tool might be broken. Admitting your go-to lure is useless feels like a personal failure, so we tell ourselves a comforting lie to keep the confidence alive, even when the fish are telling us something completely different. Let's set a scene. You know all too well. It's 5 in the morning, the air is so cold it hurts to breathe, and the only sound is the crunch of your boots on the snow. You get to your spot, drill your holes, and the excitement is building. You open that worn-out tackle box and your hand goes right to it without even thinking. You grab Old Faithful, that spoon, that jig, that rattle bait. It feels right in your hand. You tie the knot you've tied 1,000 times and you drop it down the hole with absolute certainty that this is the day. You're filled with hope, not because of the conditions or the spot, but because you have an unbreakable faith in that specific piece of hardware. This feeling, this ritual, is the foundation of the problem we're about to dissect, because that faith might be completely misplaced, and it's the first step toward a fishless day. Now let's talk about the myth of the magic lure. We believe these lures have some kind of secret power, an innate ability to trigger fish no matter what. But the truth is, a lure's success is often more about our own psychology than the lure itself. When we're using a confidence bait, we fish it better, we pay more attention, we work it with more precision, and we're more patient because we truly believe a bite is coming any second. This creates a self-fulfilling prophecy. We catch fish on it, which reinforces our belief, and the cycle continues. The lure becomes a legend in our own mind. The problem arises when that legend no longer matches reality. The lure's effectiveness has faded, but our belief is so strong that we refuse to see the signs, convincing ourselves the magic is still there, just hiding. This leads us to the core reason why your best lure fails. It's a concept called lure conditioning, or, more simply, fish get smart. They learn. This is especially true in lakes and reservoirs that see a lot of fishing pressure, which, let's be honest, is most of them these days. Think about it from the fish's perspective. For a young, naive perch or walleye, that flashy, wobbly thing falling through the water looks like an easy meal. But after it sees that same lure over and over and watches its buddies get yanked up into another dimension, after attacking it, an association is formed. The lure is no longer a signal for food, it becomes a signal for danger. The fish in that body of water literally become conditioned to avoid the most popular and commonly seen presentations. Your magic lure has become a warning siren. Let's dig deeper into the visual cue of danger. Imagine you're a 3-pound walleye just trying to get through the winter. Down comes that number 5 jigging wrap in the classic perch pattern. You've seen it. You've seen it 12 times today from 6 different holes. Yesterday, you saw it 20 times. Last winter, you saw it so much you could probably sketch it from memory. At first, it was intriguing, but after seeing it again and again, linked directly to the sudden disappearance of your peers, your survival instinct kicks in. The unique profile, the specific wobble on the fall, the flash of that particular color, it all gets filed away in your brain under "do not eat." So when you drop that can't-miss lure down the hole, the older, wiser fish you're targeting aren't ignoring it. They are actively recognizing it and avoiding it. And it's not just what they see, it's what they hear. Many of the most popular ice fishing lures are popular because of their sound. Think of the distinct, high-frequency rattle of a ripping rap, or the unique thump of a certain spoon hitting the bottom. These sound signatures are like a fingerprint. For fish, sound travels incredibly well underwater, and their lateral line is an amazing sensory organ for detecting vibrations. In the beginning, that unique sound was a curiosity that drew them in. But after months and years of hearing that exact same rattle right before a hook set, the fish learn. That specific vibration becomes the sound of death. So while you're shaking your rod tip, thinking you're calling them in for dinner, you might actually be sending out a loud, clear signal to all the educated fish in the area to stay far, far away. So how does a lure get this overexposed? I call it the bucket brigade effect. It starts with one angler having a fantastic day. He's found something that works and he fills a bucket. What's the first thing he does? He tells his best fishing buddy. That buddy tells his two buddies. Maybe the original guy posts a photo of his catch on a local fishing forum or a Facebook group, and he mentions the hot lure. Within 48 hours, every angler at the local tackle shop is buying that exact lure in that exact color. By the weekend, there are 50 guys on that same lake, all throwing the identical presentation down their holes. The fish go from seeing it once or twice a season to seeing it hundreds of times a week. The lure's effectiveness plummets, but its reputation as a hot bait lives on for years. Let me give you a real-world example I've seen play out dozens of times. Take a classic lure like the Swedish pimple. For decades, it was an absolute killer for perch and walleye on countless lakes across the ice belt. It was the definition of Old Faithful. 10 years ago, on a specific local lake I fish, you couldn't go wrong with a silver pimple tipped with a minnow head. It was automatic. But then the bucket brigade effect took hold. Everyone used it. Now you drop that same lure down the hole on that same lake, and it's a ghost town on the flasher. The fish have seen it so many times, they've become completely conditioned against it. You could have the most lively minnow head in the world on there, but the fish won't even come in to look. The lure itself has become a repellent. So what's the first concrete sign that your favorite lure is dead in the water? It's when you notice you're only catching the small, dumb fish. You'll still have some action. You'll pull up a bunch of those aggressive 5-inch perch or those tiny 12-inch walleye that haven't learned any better yet. They're the teenagers of the fish world. They'll eat anything. This gives you a false sense of security. You think, well, the lure is working. The big ones just aren't biting today. But the hard truth is, the lure isn't working on the fish you actually want to catch. The big, mature, cautious fish, the ones that have survived a few seasons of angling pressure, they know better. They've seen your trick before and they're not falling for it. Your lure is now a filter for only catching the uneducated. The second, and perhaps most frustrating sign, is the follow but no commit. This is where your electronics become your best friend and your worst enemy. You're watching your flasher or sonar screen intently. You see your lure jigging up and down, and then a big red mark appears from the bottom. It rockets up towards your bait. Your heart starts pounding. This is it. The mark gets right up to your lure, hovers there for a second, 2 seconds, and then just as quickly, it fades away and disappears. This isn't a fish that wasn't hungry. This is a fish that was drawn in by the initial motion, came in for a closer look, recognized the lure for what it is, a threat, and then actively rejected it. This is classic lure refusal, and it's the loudest signal a fish can give you that your presentation is compromised. Let's spend another moment on that flasher screen because it tells a story we often misinterpret. When that fish rises up and turns away, our first instinct is to think we did something wrong. Maybe we jigged too aggressively or not enough. Maybe we should have held it still. We start to second-guess our technique, but in many cases your technique was perfect. It was good enough to attract the fish and bring it in for an inspection. The failure point was the lure itself. The fish made a conscious decision based on prior negative experiences. It's the underwater equivalent of you seeing a suspicious email in your inbox. The subject line got your attention, but when you saw who it was from, you immediately knew it was a scam and hit delete. The fish just hit delete on your lure. Now you might be thinking, do fish really learn that well? Do they teach their young? The idea of generational learning, where a wise old walleye teaches the youngsters to avoid a certain lure, is probably a stretch. But what does happen is a very real, very brutal form of natural, or in this case, unnatural selection. The fish that are genetically predisposed to being more aggressive and less cautious, the ones that repeatedly smash those common, overused lures, are systematically removed from the lake. They end up in a bucket and on a fillet board. Who does that leave behind? It leaves behind the more cautious, wary fish that were smart enough to avoid that lure in the first place. Over years of this pressure, you are literally shaping a population of fish that is genetically wired to be suspicious of your go-to presentation. The most common counter-argument I hear is, but what about color? I'll just switch from the fire tiger pattern to the silver one. That'll fool them. And yes, changing the color can sometimes make a difference, but it's usually a temporary, short-term fix. It's like putting a new bumper sticker on a car that's been reported stolen. If the lure's profile, its size, its action on the fall, and its vibration signature are all identical, a simple color swap isn't enough to trick an educated fish. They might give the new color a quick look out of curiosity, but the fundamental danger signals are still there. It's a low-effort adjustment that rarely fools the fish that matter. You have to change the core characteristics of the presentation, not just its paint job. It's also crucial to consider the pressure factor of your specific body of water. On a remote Canadian fly-in lake that sees only a handful of anglers per year, your 20-year-old Old Faithful lure might still be an absolute world-beater. The fish there are naive and uneducated. They've likely never seen it before. But let's be realistic. Most of us are fishing on our local lakes, the ones that are just a 30-minute drive from the city. These are the places that get hammered every single weekend from first ice to last. On these waters, your lure isn't just one of many. It's been seen by every single walleye over 15 inches, probably multiple times. The context of where you're fishing is just as important as what you're fishing with. Ultimately, the biggest obstacle is our own built-in bias. I'm talking about the angler's blind spot. Our brains are wired to remember the successes and forget the failures. We vividly recall that one incredible afternoon 3 years ago when we caught 20 fish on that specific jig. That memory is bright and powerful. But we conveniently forget the last 10 trips where we used that same jig and caught absolutely nothing. We cherry-pick the evidence that supports our belief in the lure's magic. Admitting that it no longer works would mean that our past success was just a moment in time, not a permanent solution. It's a tough pill to swallow, but recognizing this cognitive bias is the first step toward breaking the cycle of failure. So, we've identified the problem. Now let's talk about the transition. I call this the breakup. You need to go to your tackle box and have a tough, honest conversation. It's time to retire some of the veterans. It's going to feel wrong. It might even feel like a betrayal to a lure that has served you well in the past. But it is an absolutely necessary step for you to evolve as an angler. You have to be willing to demote Old Faithful from its starting position. You don't have to throw it away, put it in a box for sentimental reasons if you must, but you have to stop tying it on your line out of pure habit. This conscious decision to break up with your go-to lure is the single most important change you can make. Once you've made that break, here is solution. Part 1. Go obscure. Your new mission is to find and use lures that the fish in your lake have not seen before. This means walking past the main aisle at the big box store where they keep all the popular mass-marketed baits. Instead, look for lures from smaller, independent or custom bait makers. Search online for companies that are making things with a unique profile, a different material, or an action that's unlike anything else. The goal is to present something so new and different that the fish's conditioning, its learned danger signals, don't even apply. You want to trigger curiosity, not caution. Be the angler who is showing them something for the very first time. Let me give you a practical example of what going obscure looks like. Let's say everyone on your lake is using a very popular, loud, rattling blade bait. The fish are conditioned to that specific look and sound. Instead of just trying a different color of that same bait, you could switch to a silent, wide-bodied gliding jig made of resin. It has a completely different profile. When you jig it, it doesn't vibrate aggressively. Instead, it slowly glides and spirals in a wide circle on the fall. It's a subtle presentation that the fish have likely never encountered. It doesn't trigger their rattling bait equals danger alarm. This simple switch from a common lure to an obscure one can be the difference between getting rejected and getting bit. Now for solution part 2, which is for those who aren't ready to buy a whole new set of lures. Modify what you have. Take those old lures that have been collecting dust and become a mad scientist. Don't just fish them straight out of the package. If it's a spoon, take a pair of pliers and give it a slight, unique bend to change its action. If it's a rattle bait, some guys will even drill a tiny hole and flush out the rattles to make it silent. Add a different kind of trailer. Put a plastic on a spoon where it's not supposed to go. Paint it a bizarre color with your daughter's nail polish. The goal is to break the lure's familiar fingerprint. Make it unique. Make it your own. An old lure with a new trick is often more effective than a new lure everyone else is using. This all boils down to a fundamental mindset shift. Your goal as an angler should not be to find the next magic lure, because as soon as you do and as soon as it becomes popular, the clock starts ticking on its effectiveness. The real goal is to become an angler who constantly thinks about why a lure is working and who is able to recognize the signs when it stops. You need to see lures as tools in a toolbox, not as magic wands. No single tool is right for every job, forever. The true skill is in analyzing the situation, understanding the fish's behavior and conditioning, and choosing or creating the right tool for that specific moment. Your brain is the deadliest weapon in your arsenal, not the lure. So let's put it all together. Let's go back to that cold morning on the ice. You drill your holes, you open your tackle box, but this time your hand goes right past Old Faithful. You pause, you think about the pressure this lake gets, you think about what these fish have seen 1,000 times, and you choose something different. Maybe it's that obscure gliding jig, or maybe it's the spoon you modified last night. You drop it down the hole, and you watch your flasher. A big red mark appears. It moves toward your lure, but this time it doesn't pause, it doesn't hesitate, it commits, and your rod doubles over. That feeling, that's the feeling of outsmarting the fish. That's the feeling we're all chasing, and it comes from adaptation, not from habit. So, the big takeaway is this: fish learn. Angling pressure educates them, and that magic lure that everyone, including you, has been using for years eventually becomes a warning sign, not a dinner bell. You're not crazy for thinking it's not working anymore. You are probably 100% right. The most shocking part of all this is that your own confidence in that lure is the very thing that's been holding you back. It's a comfortable, easy habit that is costing you fish. The lure itself isn't the enemy. Our stubborn refusal to let it go is, and this changes everything because it forces you to stop being a passive angler who just uses what worked last year and start being an active strategist who thinks about what the fish haven't seen before. Thank you for sticking with me through this. If this made you look at your tackle box a little differently, do me a favor and hit that like button and subscribe for more content that challenges the old ways. And now for the big question: which legendary lure do you think is the most overused and overrated on the ice today? Let the great debate begin in the comments below.